Welcome to The Perfect Balance, where this is the podcast where we discover your symptoms are not the problem, with your hosts, Eva Vennari, Dr. Heather Kneale, and Leslie Brown. Join us as we jump right into this episode.
Got it.
Welcome in. This is the Perfect Balance podcast, and we're all things minerals. My name is Eva Vennari. I'm founder of the Elevate Institute.
I'm Heather Kneale. I run a school that offers mineral balancing certificate programs.
And I'm Leslie Brown, founder and CEO of the Mineral Balancing Group.
And we are talking about who do you listen to and why is it important? I just
Not always easy. That's a hard one. That's a hard one.
Yeah. Well, isn't it funny? So I love this conversation so much because there's so many voices of perceived experts out there in the field. Health and wellness. You know, you've got the gurus, you've got the experts who, with the certificate on their walls of a doctor, and this and that and the other. But like, why is it really important to listen to people who have some experience in this field when it comes to mineral balancing science? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about some juicy stuff about that.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of people that will do hair testing. Actually, that's how I found it. I found hair testing and I wanted to test. I was in the medical field and I wasn't doing well and I wanted a test. And so I found someone who did a test and a hair test from analytical research labs. And I like to know why I'm doing something or, so I asked her, I'm like, why is my calcium high? Why is my magnesium high? And she's, oh, you don't need to know that. I'm like, what do you mean I don't need to know that? That was the answer. And that's actually what led me to go straight to analytical research labs because they couldn't tell me anything about the hair chart. And they were just giving me bags of supplements to take home.
Were you ever, I mean, it sounds like you were led astray in the same way I was. So I started my journey of alternative medicine back in 2001. It's just a long, long time ago. And somewhere along the line, I met up with a doctor out of Fresno, and he had an office in LA. So he would travel back and forth between the two. He wasn't certified in mineral balancing, but he offered hair analysis, and I didn't know that was a problem. And so he had the test run and he looks at it. And the first thing he says is, oh, you're really low in manganese, and then shoves a supplement of manganese towards my direction. You need to take these. We know better. You're seeing a horrific face, on each of us going, that's not how it works, because it's the relationships that are important. But isn't it always like, you want the test, but do you know how to analyze it? That's the key.
Right.
And you're
exactly what you need. Go ahead, Leslie.
I was going to change the subject. So do you want to finish?
No, that's perfect. That was great. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say, like, who do I listen to? In the beginning, I remembered one of my mentors had said, okay, how many of you how many are you here because you saw me on Oprah? And no one raised their hand in a room to like 3,000. Then how many are here because your friends told you this was a great program? And just almost universally, everybody raised their hands. So we ask our friends and loved ones and people who we think have had successful experiences and things until they don't. Right? It can look good for a short term and then all of a sudden things stop. Now, I had good fortune of running into a real mineral balancing practitioner and things started to turn around very quickly. But since then, I notice exactly what you guys are talking about and what our clients say. They end up with somebody who really is not well versed or studied at all in the field of mineral balancing. And specifically, we're talking about Dr. Paul Eck's amazing work, lifetime body of work that he did, because interpreting the test is very, very important. And now my go-to people have changed a lot. It's still friends and loved ones, but it includes my trusted colleagues, which is really you two, maybe a couple other people in the community, but you two are really it, because I want to bounce off ideas and see what you think of it. And I also noticed that I like to test a lot of different things, and so do my clients. After a while, you think, okay, I get this. Let me try something different. Man, I won't make a move without testing it for 3 to 6 months and having a hair tissue test to understand exactly what's been happening with my body. And I never, ever let go of the minerals. I always keep those going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be so confusing. It's funny. In the process of having a business and learning boundaries around listening to new, as a new practitioner, you're listening to clients, you're setting them up with a program, and they start asking questions that are from a whole different subset of criteria. They're still in that allopathic hunt and kill. I'm going to hunt down my symptoms and kill them one at a time. I have been in this place where I'm even just recently given a very long, very comprehensive extra, like whole thing about this is a holistic approach. We're not going after one thing in particular. In fact, we have no idea what your body's going to decide to heal first, second, or third, or fourth. And the very next question out of their mouth is, well, what can I take for my kidneys and help support them? Start over.
Right.
So it can be frustrating because a lot of this work, not only is that who do you listen to, now that you've found a certified person, do you find that it's difficult to overcome the programming of the person you're talking to? And as a listener, like as a person who's watching this, think about that. Have you gone to somebody that is certified in work, and then you question them because it doesn't line up with somebody else that you no longer go to?
Exactly
Right.
right. I tell
Yeah.
people, I say, look, your body does not need a diagnosis to figure out what's going on. Just give it what it needs and let it figure it out, because it is designed to self-heal. Our job's just to give it what it needs and move the other stuff out of the way. But it is hard. It's very difficult for people. It's a big mindset shift.
Well, I came from medical community, so, and my whole family, medical people. So, coming from that and then trying to, I never thought about eating correctly. I mean, I didn't. We just didn't talk about that. It was more about getting your degrees and working hard and not being lazy. Don't sit down for 5 minutes, so those are the things that I think about, so my mindset was, yes, you get a symptom, you go after it. If it's bothering you, you try to figure it out. And that was my training too. So it's very hard to break. And the only reason why I had to break it, I didn't have a choice. I had a couple months. I was told I had a couple months to live. So it made that sentence makes you think very differently about what you're doing. So that's what helped break that pattern for me. And it was a hard one to break because my brain still wanted to go back to it. And now I don't, I can go back and forth a little bit, but my main goal is mineral balancing. If it's not going to help balance the minerals, I'm not going to do it.
Well, and that's a really interesting point to say. Well, you've understood and come to a place after working with it for so long, and all of us have been working in this field for a long time. It's like we understand the benefit and the reason why we want our minerals balanced. Most people don't have any of that, not even doctors. Like I wish doctors understood a couple of things. One, how the body actually heals. It's not through medicine. That's a pain relief issue. And then the other is like to really hone in on this concept that when we're in pain, our logic completely goes out the window.
Right. Excellent point.
To what we know, without even though we have an expert in front of us, somebody who says, here's a way forward. We've been where you are. And this is the important part for me. It's like I look for people to listen to if they've been where I've been, or been where I am, and where I want to be, and got there in a way that is in alignment with my own values. Like these are the important things for me to look at, so that it might be helpful in cutting out some extra voices of, oh, I think you should take this. I think you should do this test. I think you should change your water filter this one. And I think the list of things, barrage. But yeah, upbringing and the fear of opposing authority. Let's talk about that. The fear of opposing authority.
That's another one. Yes. Oh, yes. I was in a doctor's appointment one time with my daughter, and I just had a gut feeling that I didn't want to do something, and I didn't want to do it. I kept I just had this feeling about it. But the doctor was a friend of our family's. And so it was very hard for me. I even tried to say, I don't really want to do this. And oh my gosh, and I couldn't. I had to do what they said because I felt very small, actually. And I also didn't know enough at the time. And so they were the authority to me at that time. And unfortunately, I couldn't fight them on that. I didn't feel comfortable enough. So yeah, it was hard because you look up to those people.
Well, we're trained that way to think of them as God and that they have the answers. So, which kind of takes me to two things. I remember once I found mineral balancing, I left 40 years of following medical protocol behind, just stopped cold, which I do not advise people to do. I don't think that's wise, but I did it. And then I went back to each of those doctors, including one that said, well, we're doing a study for $6,000 a week. We can give you worms that'll help with intestinal problems. And I go, what? But I went back to them all to say, look at this. It's like a miracle. It's right here. You just need this and you can set all these people free. I got closed doors, wouldn't even accept an appointment from me. So that kind of changed my definition of authority. And I helped me realize, yes, I am taking responsibility for the health of myself and my family, period. And sometimes it's scary because I don't have the answers, but I also know they don't either. And the other thing is I started listening to my body in a different way as the authority. So I realized symptoms, I looked at them differently, that symptoms are now the conversation my body is having with me to let me know that minerals out of balance and can't take care of the systems like they're designed to be taken care of. So that was a big switch. Now my body's the authority and I have to shut my brain down now and again. Just listen to your body.
Well, and it's it's that communication. It's a whole other language that we're used to saying. We're used to shutting up. We're saying, oh, there's a headache. Let me take a pain pill and get rid of the headache. But we're not realizing what's underneath it. That's the communication of the body. And so that's a great leeway into who do you listen to, and listening to yourself is the most important thing.
Right. It is. But you brought up a good point, Eva. When you don't feel well, you get to, and I went through this, and I'm sure you both have done this, is that when you don't feel well, you keep going from one to another, to another, to another. And, there was probably some people I didn't spend much time with because I wasn't seeing results fast enough, or I felt spent too long because I wasn't seeing any results. And so you just keep going from one to another, and sometimes, and then you get desperate. You get to a certain point where you feel so bad. And that, unfortunately, that's how I found this. I was so desperate. It was so out of my comfort zone. And I thought, you know what? What do I have to lose? That was my feeling. What do I have to lose? But if you're not feeling well, then what do you suggest? What should we tell besides listening to your body? If you don't feel well, sometimes you're not even in tune with what's going on with your body.
Oh my God. And then it's perpetuated. I was raised on the premise that milk does a body good. I mean, we remember those commercials, right? And my digestion and my nutrition were so off that it couldn't digest milk. And so it didn't do this body good. And my mom, as a child, my mom kept saying, drink your milk, it's good for you. Drink your milk, it's good for you. Have some bread, it'll fill you up. All these things that we now know, gluten intolerance, nut and allergies. Right. Anything to do with anything you put in your mouth. And for some reason, as a child, or I know the reason, we depend on our parents for livelihood. Our survival depends on a relationship with our parents. We don't want to make them angry. And then, I don't know about your household, but my household, if I somehow questioned my parents, that was a problem. So, okay, down the milk. And by the time I was an adult, I was down to maybe 10 foods that I could eat.
Yeah.
And I remember the moment like it was yesterday. It kind of came into my head, and I'm holding that glass of milk and thinking, well, everybody says it's good for me. And I stopped and I went, but it ends me up in the bathroom way too soon and not feeling good with IBS and who knows what else is going on. And I put it down and I said, maybe it's not good for me and not good for me right now.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a hard thing. I was 30 something when 32. I mean, that's crazy. That's a lot of years of going on the recording and the advice of well-meaning parents, and then the whole advertising system of drink your milk, got milk.
So you're trying to break your family programming. That's a big thing because our belief systems drive our actions, right?
Yeah.
So our whole social structure, our family structure, our social structure, and what we've been, maybe I could say brainwashed, but definitely programmed into thinking is one way. And to break that programming is very challenging, but it sure works when you do it. A whole different kind of freedom.
You're reminding me of a client that I was so excited for her to sign up with me because I knew I could help her, and got off the phone, and 20 minutes later I got an email, really long email. She says, Eva, I can't do this. My family started making fun of me because I told them about the program and that I was going to be taking supplementation, and they told me I was crazy for doing it. I need my money back. She was older than me at the time, and I'm like, wow, that's the root of your problem right there. I said, you don't need minerals. You need to stop being codependent.
That's really important. That is really important because really as a culture, we are trained into codependency, and to try and break free of that that's really a good point. Really good point.
Yeah, it's hard. I had the same thing with family members. They thought I was, crazy. You should be going to the doctors. You should be going to a different doctor, or keep going. That's I heard. Even my immediate family was telling me, you don't look like you're getting better, or maybe you need to go get on some antibiotics, or and again, it's well-meaning, and that's how I was brought up. I mean, antibiotics. Those are like that's a weekly treat for me growing up.
Yeah. I remember I had friends call me because my husband was going through a very strong healing reaction, which is when the minerals start to push bad stuff out of the body and start to heal the body. It's called retracing. You kind of relive that experience, but this time it's pushing it out of the body instead of all that stuff living in the body. And I remember that. And a friend called and dressed me down. Leslie, go to the doctor. And I thought, okay, which one? The one who wants to give him a 25th surgery, or the one that said there was no hope, go home and die? And once I said that, the conversation stopped. And I said, we have made our decision. I appreciate your heart of love and concern, and love and appreciate you, but we've made our decision and this is what we're doing. And we had a turnaround within about 3 days. But that even is threatening when you know what you're doing, when you're professionally doing it. It's a big deal. And codependency, I think, is the perfect label on it. When anytime we're not free to think on our own, or just even try different things in this great adventure we call life, there's something wrong. Something's trying to get its tentacles around us to stop us from moving forward. And it's just not right.
Yeah. No, I think that's going to be that's the conversation worth having on one of our episodes in the future. Is like, how can we break free of the codependency so that it can be serving us for good relationships versus really a self-sacrifice. Yeah. which actually, what I'm finding is the common golden thread between almost all of my clients is that self-sacrifice, thinking if I do good in the world and I give up my own needs, then I'm how to be rewarded later. Well, what about your body right now in this lifetime? If you're not around and your body starts to fail, who are you going to serve?
Right.
Oh, I'll start I was a leading question, but I was so surprised about how the mental clarity that came, the level of energy, the things I've been able to do that I never even dreamed. I think I fell under had different accomplishments and things in life, but it falls under failure to thrive, which I think is a medical term. I'm not sure, but I know it's a common term. But we have no idea what kind of lid literally is on us because we don't have the minerals we need. And man, did you guys, I know you did, but did you have anything to add to that about the freedom you felt afterwards, or how different life looked?
I was actually scared. Go ahead, Eva. Go for it.
Oh, no. I was more hopeful than I was scared, but I had a really interesting insight on my very first healing reaction, which I know we're gonna go into all about what healing reactions are, and don't be afraid.
We may scare you to death, but don't be afraid.
It means you're healing. It means you're healing.
Yeah. But I have this great, I was kind of warned about physical healing reactions that I might have. And it was 3 weeks in to taking my minerals like a soldier. And my body started to go through these processes. And I remember being up late in bed and ready to go to sleep. And all of a sudden, I'm clairvoyant. And so the photo or the picture of my grandmother, who had passed away 7 years prior, just floated in front of my face and, in the theater of the mind. And I started to feel the sadness and what would be the grief that I was unable to feel because my emotions were so hardened by being full of toxic metals that when the toxins finally started to come out, they allowed for this healing and the grief that would normally take it could take a while for grief to float through. But the percentage of time, it took 5 minutes, 5 minutes for my body to feel it. I knew what it was. I felt it release and go down through the, base core of my body and then out, and it emptied. And I went, wow, I feel like a breath of
I feel.
softer. Yeah, healing. And I knew what it was and said, okay, next.
Right.
I hear that kind of thing a lot from clients too. And it usually happens in the middle of the night.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I was about the same as you, Eva. I was about 3 weeks into taking the minerals, and the reason why I said I got scared is that I had not, I was, my whole family has had like mental, emotional issues, and I had none whatsoever. That was not something I dealt with at all. All of a sudden, I was like in tears. I was watching a commercial or something, and I'm crying. I'm just like, oh, my husband's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm just like, and then somebody would tell me something that wasn't really that sad or wasn't that as happy, but my emotions were just like so, and I just remember at first going, oh my gosh, am I going to be like this? I'm going to freak everybody out. And then they mellowed out. I mellowed out, and I knew I was heading in the right direction because it was the first time I noticed that something changed. All the other times, nothing changed. Nothing, no movement in emotions, no movement, maybe some symptom relief, but nothing permanent. So for me, that was like the light bulb went on. And so I knew, but it was much longer in the program that I actually was able to get rid of my sticky note list.
Yeah, it takes a while. It takes a while.
We have a few more minutes.
Isn't it interesting though? It's challenge. I don't know how you explain to people what it's like to feel when you're not used to feeling, and what it's like to really taste food when you've been so toxic you don't really taste, and what it's like to really smell things when you've been so toxic or so low in minerals that you couldn't really, that whole sense of smell was gone, or even what it's like to enjoy being around people because there's no disruption in that mental part, the affect, that you can really communicate and connect with people you might not even been able to tolerate before. All of a sudden you can see their gifts and talents and what they can communicate, right?
Yeah.
Even though you may not want to live with them, you can appreciate them, whereas before I might have just blocked them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you kind of develop a hierarchy of, I call them circles of influence for myself. It's like, okay, you're allowed to be close to me. You're a hot mess. You can stay over there. And before it was just like either on or off because there's no energy to create that.
Yes.
Right. So you need the energy to create your own boundaries and be able to work with them. Boundaries are not for other people. They're for you. Just saying.
That's right. That's right.
If you've been walking around with a t-shirt with all your boundaries on and expecting people to listen to you, you're doing it wrong.
Oh God. Well, we should probably sign off here pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, any last words of wisdom on who we listen to?
Yeah, that could be. I think we should do some more talks on it. Actually, yeah.
And this is a good place to start. You're getting 3 people who are real, there are a lot of people in the world who are business motivated. They're entrepreneurs because they want to go make gobs of money and do this and conquer the world, which I value those skills tremendously. But this is a group that's mission driven. We all deeply want to see healing in the world. And we do this out of a heart of, oh, excuse the word, but love. Our motivation is really out of caring and a desire to help. So that's why we're doing this, and we hope it helps. And Eva mentions also, please give your comments, because we'd love to speak to what you're interested in, because we're a wealth of information here that we'd like to pass on.
All right.
Exactly.
So start here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try something different.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go ahead and call this a day. Thank you for listening in, for watching, and for commenting. Definitely want to hear what you have to say and what questions you have. We look forward to answering them for you. I am Eva Vennari with the Elevate Institute.
I'm Heather Kneale with Global Nutritional Healing.
Leslie Brown with the Mineral Balancing Group.
And this has been the perfect balance, where we're telling you your symptoms are not the problem.